right? What's another one? Treasure State and
Big Sky.
Big Sky. Anything else?
Last best place.
Last best place?
Right. Cute.
How about this one? The Two Seasons State.
Yeah.
South
Gold or not.
of, the- how about this one?
No.
South of the loonies, but still in the boonies.
Yeah, there you go. The loonies.
Montana, yes, it is in the US. Montana, land of remote possibilities. Montana, at least we aren't Utah, Alabama, Maine, California, Texas, and on and on and on. I like that.
Hello, ladies.
Come for a visit, just so we'll stay, you're welcome.
I got
Yeah.
a couple little stools right there, or I
Yeah.
think there's a seat over there by
Right.
Rosemary still.
And I guess we could also say about with a bobcat. Montana, the outer rim of the middle of nowhere. Montana, where the exodus of Southern California begins.
Yes, sorry, so.
Montana, where the antelope look closer.
I was just trying to do it. We needed more copies of.
Montana, they're.
We need more copies of both of these. Let me grab some more for you ladies.
Montana, even Lewis and Clark got lost here. All right. Sammy Joe fell asleep earlier, she would have made more copies. Sammy Joe, here's another one, you're gonna have to worry about this one, because they'll all want those Montana slogans.
Yes, I have that one
Do it?
printing right now, actually.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, here's the Montana, the two season states. Okay, all right. Here we go. We're gonna run out of it. We're gonna put Sammy Joe to sleep, she was napping too much and perhaps. He's actually, haven't seen downright lucky you've got Sammy Joe. I'm kind of impressed. All right. Did you get one?
I think we have it on. I think we're okay. We're a little tight here. We'll be back with that one.
Did you get
This one, that's what he just said.
Sammy Joe?
Yeah.
We're gonna have to turn this in a way.
Okay.
People can't see that. Can you see it?
I.
Can you too? Can you see the three? I didn't know Sammy, so. Hey, do you guys have rally sticks around here?
Yes.
We do?
Yes. Yeah.
I thought it was just me. Cause I was coming up from Fort Benton today. This is everything I got today.
Oh. I don't believe it. No. No.
No,
What's
what?
your collection?
Yeah.
From how long?
It's a nice collection.
Years and years and years.
Fort Benton to here, how long was that?
26 months.
26 months. What's the fair number?
We know that.
Yeah.
Hey, might want me to leave right now. I try to make up quick. Okay, here, you know what that is. Yeah, that's the goal. Have you all been a few places? Everybody been to Canada? Who hasn't? Next door, hey. Church of God. Here's an interesting question for you, just think. How many border crossings do we have with Canadian provinces?
Over 2,000 for
Conferences?
Montana.
In Montana.
No, legally by road, by highway.
Oh, not in Montana though, or?
In Montana.
Going,
If you wanna sneak
Two,
on Indy, there's
going to
a chair by
Canada.
Jerry.
How many do you have?
Or Paul,
that you could go,
that Jerry's not
Four.
sitting.
How many-
If you wanted to kind of go around.
Oh,
Honeywood.
Thanks, Trish.
Wait.
Grass. Oh, Whitlash.
Then maybe you can sneak
Here we
on
go.
through.
we have three, we have more. You get the others? How many you got now?
There must be 8 or 9. It's from the
I
east.
don't know.
There's several in the far east.
Sammy Joe, you've got to give somebody a map of Montana. How many provinces do we border?
Alberta and Saskatchewan. 2 or 3.
Where's Tuesday? Pretty people, I guess a little bit.
You all know where the school is over here? I think we're gonna.
Some
go.
days.
All right,
Yeah.
all right, they're actually three.
Three?
Right, now, here's the interesting thing. How many other states border three Canadian provinces? None.
Three, oh, what was it?
That is correct. So,
Point.
people ask where you're from, you can just kind of walk around, even wearing my shorts, I can walk like this. Where you're from, I'm from God's country. And furthermore, our Canadian neighbors and us are pretty good buddies. How many buddies do we have? Well, we have at least three up there. You know how many provinces there are? Okay, you're gonna have to get out of here.
We don't, we have 50 states.
No. All right, now, see this thing?
No idea.
Does anybody ever use one of these?
I thought they were.
A couple of you have? Okay. See that, what I can do with it? What do you think of that? Okay. All I can do, my time with you here, is do bits and pieces of this. If we say that this is really our story, I can just go here, 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 and here. I can't do any more than that, because we don't have enough time to go that far. But I can give you a feel to this special place. Now, I'm kind of delighted because I'm here tonight. I'm in Lewistown tomorrow night at the library. I was there last year, and the talk I'm doing there tonight here is the one I did in Lewistown last year. But the one I'm doing in Lewistown is one that I call some favorite Montana heroes. And I have just a hodgepodge of examples of Montanans who have really made a great difference. Then I'm going on to the next night, and I'm going back to my hometown of Harleton, where I grew up as a kid. And I'm gonna get to do Montana towns again. So this is kind of a favorite topic. So I grew up in Harleton. My folks, my mom was from Whitehall, and my dad was from the Deer Lodge Valley, between Deer Lodge and Anaconda. His family came to Montana because of homesteading. My mom's family came out in the early West, had quite a bit of money, and her great grandfather was the first president of the Montana Bankers Association. And he was stationed in Bozeman, which was very important at that time particularly. Although we know the way Bozeman's growing now, we think like crazy, it's getting awfully important all over again, since you can't find anything to buy there, and if you do try to, you don't have enough money in the world. So, at any rate, I came from real Montana roots. And both of my parents ended up going to college, at that time, Montana State University, now the University of Montana, because Montana State University is now Montana State University in Bozeman, where for a long time it was called Montana State College. And do we do that once in a while with names? We change them around. That's happened before. And who knows, it could happen again. There could be all kinds of reasons why a place could get a different name somewhere down the road. So when my folks got married, my dad got a job up in Havre, working for the Havre Daily News. And it was right at during the time period of the Depression. And my mom, her first job, she taught in Hingham, at a school about the size of what you have right over here right now. And then they ended up buying the newspaper in Harleton. So it was a county seat newspaper, Wheatland County. Eventually, they bought the paper in Wygate, Golden Valley County, and today it's the Times Clarion, because like we know has happened to so many newspapers, you know, they've gotten way smaller. So many of them that don't cover the news like they used to, we know that. And, you know, you're kind of lucky you got the Fort Benton River Press right here, and you've got the Lewistown paper, because you got a couple of good ones, right here close by, that do a good job of covering local news. And so I have to put a plug in for the news business, because I kind of grew up in that kind of a world. And my seven surviving brothers and sisters. They are scattered from, all in Montana except one in Eugene, Oregon. So 6 out of 7 of us never really left Montana to school, came home to Montana. My wife's family, it was only 2 sisters in Billings, and my wife, who just passed away 651 days ago, I count every day. And she, her there's one in Eugene, Oregon. Oh, there are 2 in California of her family. So Montana roots are still very much there. Now, I was fascinated getting a chance to take a look at this book of yours this afternoon. And Sammy Joe was great about pulling this one out for me, because it hits me that having books that tell the stories about where you're from, and I've always been very interested in knowing place names. So when I travel, I always have to figure out why the town got the name that it got. So I think that's kind of fun. So if you get any kind of a book like that, and I'll give you a couple of examples. For example, if you get a Montana Almanac, this is a great one to cover. Look at all the little citations I have in here. And I guarantee you, your community is in here too. Or I like this one. This is one of my absolute favorites right here, called 56 Counties. Which is another gem of a guy who did well as a novelist, then went out and traveled all over Montana. He lived in Billings, and he just went from one Montana community to another, to another, to another. Then, another place that I think is awfully important, and that is, I know a lot of you like to, all your high school teams. And that is, from A to Z, every one of the athletes, great athletes, that came from these towns. So, does anybody know who was one of the great athletes that came from this town? One of the units, Bradley. Say the name again.
Joey Bosa, Daryl and Kevin England.
Darren and Kevin England, who both went on to play college basketball sides. Ironically, the other night, I had dinner in Missoula with 2 people who were involved with some of the work having to do with scholarships at Western Montana College. My wife had been the head of that college down there for 6 years. She was the first woman college president in Montana. Went off to Nebraska and was the first woman president in Nebraska. And for 11 years, she was the commissioner of higher education for Montana, the one and only woman, and the only woman who has ever been a president at the University of Montana. And we have a marvelous woman as president right now at MSU in Bozeman. She's just a gem of a person. And so I've mentioned that because I like to point out that sometimes you'll find that some of those who have made great differences, we always used to have the idea that the world revolved around guys. By the way, do you know place names? You know the place name, what your town is named for?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Geraldine Rockefeller.
That's right. We've never heard.
You tell us which story you think
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, what's the
Geraldine,
story?
Because we have 2 stories on Geraldine Rockefeller. One
Oh.
that she's a daughter, and one that she was his wife.
Sammy Joe, that's your assignment. She had to look that up. for us.
Oh.
I was gonna say, I got it out of the book that all these people probably know.
Yeah.
Searched
All
for,
right.
right?
So anyway, this is a great one too. Listening of all these Montana towns from A to Z, from Zorky to Zurich, 264 Montana communities. Somebody who was an athlete of some sort in each one of those. Now, I want to congratulate all of you right now for this one. And that is, I had Sammy Joe, who I am quite impressed with. I'll tell you, for a little satellite library for the big old city of Fort Benton, this is a wonderful little library. I walked around and took a look at it. If the book isn't here, you probably have a good chance of finding it. But here is something that I think are really treasures. And that is kids who are going to school here right now won't appreciate it very much when they just get their picture taken. And it might have been at a basketball game, or it might have been their senior picture, whatever. But 10 or 20 or 30 years from now, this will be an absolute family treasure. I'm really impressed with what your little community has done in terms of yearbooks. And how many people here who have in the back of the book, how many companies and so on have been very good about sponsoring some part of the yearbook. So that's a pat on the back to all of you. Now, one of the things that I want to mention is this, and that is the best gift that there is. And I hope there'll be a copy down the road that you can get here, called the Montana Carnegie Libraries. And that is, a library is very much of a focal point of a community. Any town that has a library is a good town. That's all there is to it. You've got a library, then you're well on your way to making an honest to goodness difference in so many different ways. Well, now, as I travel around, I have to stop in and see everything, and I'm kind of hoping that I understand we have somebody with the Historical Society, that maybe there's gonna be a chance to take a look at,
The depot.
yeah, go tonight.
Tonight,
Think we could?
I'll go home and get the key.
Okay. I'll try to keep you awake, you can have a little treat. I have to see this, you know why? Because this little community and my community in Harlowton have something in common.
The Milwaukee.
They were both the Milwaukee Railroad. And this was a spur line of the road that was intended to go Lewistown through here to Great Falls, with the intention that it was going to meet up with the Great Northern, Milwaukee, then further down would be the Northern Pacific. And we know a lot of communities came into being because of railroads. That was a key reason why a lot of towns came into being. So when I travel around, this one is really something. This person went out, and he called it from abandoned Montana from boom to bust. And he's just got a series of pictures in here. What do we often call these things? Besides the crane elevator,
Birdhouses.
birdhouses, anybody else?
It's something on the prairie, what the hell are
Yeah, there's something.
they?
Yeah, there you go. There's sentinel.
Prairie Castles is what I.
Prairie Castle, sure.
Prairie Sentinels, so that.
All right, we have a lot of these around. And very often they give you a good indication of a community. So this is a wonderful little book. And this is one that you should have around as well. And I'll just give you one example in here. Give you one, and that is Montana Flour Mills. You know, we had this idea that because we were the wheat country and everything, we were gonna provide all of the flour so many places in this country. And that was a big reason for these. So these are all good examples of things that I think are indicators. Now, I'm gonna settle down here for a little bit, tell you a little bit more now about, we're gonna see it. You awake back there? Okay. Make sure my new best friend is right here.
Yeah, you should just be able to hit any button.
That one.
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
Oh,
So-
this one.
Can I request that we shut that lid right there?
Oh,
That would be really nice. Thank you.
you could have stood up. Can you guys see? Okay. All right, now I'm just gonna give you a lot of examples. So I can't talk about every picture, but I'll give you a lot of examples of a lot of places in Montana. Can you all over there see okay?
Was good when you.
Can you
took
move
away.
closer? There's another chair here in front.
I could see from here.
I'm fine.
I wanna make sure you can all see though. I mean, it took me 100 years in order to go out and take all these pictures, so I want you to be able to see what I took. So I have to admit it, I have a love affair with Montana. For other states, I have admiration. I have respect. with Montana. What is it?
Love.
It's love. Who said that?
John Stein.
John Stein. Well, people are gonna, you've been working, you've been doing your homework. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a bunch of examples. And some of them are hard for me to show you. One of them you're gonna see is my Graves Hotel in Harlingen. And this one is hard for me to show. Can you put that one up right over there? Hold that just a minute. This is what it looked like. This is what it looked like. When I go there day after tomorrow, it is gonna be one of the hardest things in the world to look at that hole in the ground. My parents' newspaper business was right across the street from there. Our hometown doctor, Dr. Cans, practiced law there. Our eye doctor, who was also the owner of the hotel, practiced right there. This was a magnet of my community, and it's nothing. When this went down, one of the friends that I have in Missoula said to me, you know, that must have been one of the toughest things ever. And, you know, he just said that, he meant, he was having a great deal of sincerity, but it was really very hard, and it's gonna be hard for me day after tomorrow, where I'm gonna talk about the same kind of a thing. I hate to even show that picture there. All right, so let's take a look at some of these wonderful pictures that give us some ideas about Montana.
Was the first one Lewistown, the Lewistown Public Library?
Okay, look at. Okay. You can see this? All right, let's have a little Montana quiz. All right. Now, can anybody see any of those?
We just see, let's warm up with Montana quiz.
Hmm? Anybody see anything more than that? We don't.
It just says, let's warm up with them.
Oh, but can they see it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, now you can. Okay. All right, what's toponymy? Anybody know?
Yeah.
Study of place names. Okay, well, let's just go down and take it up at another one. What are the beautiful corners of Montana? The four of them,
You want towns or?
you know,
The town, you mean?
Mhm.
Alzada,
Alzada,
The Eureka?
Troy.
Troy, Plentywood, you know,
You go north of Plentywood.
no,
Gardner.
no,
Yeah, Gardner.
Bab.
no.
No.
That's not in the corner.
All right, if you go all the way to the northwest corner,
Yeah.
anybody know?
It's not Eureka?
Hmm?
It's not Eureka?
Libby.
It's Eureka.
Close.
Heron.
You're gonna have to go from Alzada to Yak,
Yeah.
Okay.
up here,
Yeah.
The.
You know,
eastern,
Westby?
Northeastern?
Oh, that's
West?
the,
Yeah,
so
so,
like,
yeah.
okay.
southwest corner,
Well, we,
Lima?
Lima and Oneida House.
Lima, the Lima beans. But there's another one that says that they are, but we really have 5 corners. Darby claims
Oh.
it's a 5th corner.
Oh, yeah.
Now here's, the study of the names is something really important. I'll give you one example. Let's go up to the northeast corner. What was the one I just gave you?
Westby.
Do you know that at one time Westby was the westernmost town in North
North
Dakota?
Dakota?
And when the railway came through, the spur line, they actually had to stop on the Montana side. So Westby, which in the native language of the people that built the railroad, was supposed to be the westernmost town of North Dakota. It is the easternmost town of Montana. So if you ever get a chance to meet anybody from Westby, you might ask them what state they live in. That one out for you. Okay. Montana's smallest incorporated town.
Geraldine.
Wanted to change its name to Joe.
The Joe?
What was the name of it?
Oh, yeah. that's
You ever
right.
hear the football player?
I remember
Joe
that, I
Montana.
remember then that happened.
Joe Montana.
Yeah, oh, Joe Montana.
You guys all know where the school is over here?
Yeah.
I think we're on our way over. All right, we'll just go down the, because you're gonna get a copy of this. Okay. Why is Saint Mary famous and in the news?
Which one?
How many Saint Marys do we have?
Well, there's some towns named St.
That's
Mary's.
St. Mary's. That's the St. Mary.
And that's over by Glasgow, because it's an abandoned Air Force base.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
We went blank. Okay, all right, here, now see, can you see that all right?
Yeah.
All right, I'll just show you a couple. All right, the study of place names. All right, look at the next one. There is a plan. Yeah.
When yeah. Yeah, Calzada was speaking tonight.
Well, you're gonna get us, you're gonna get the answer. I'm gonna give you the whole answer, I'm just gonna go through this quick. We'll just get going, here's another one. Look at this, the number of miles northwest to southeast corner of Montana. Believe it or not, 554.
850.
Sometime when you get an opportunity, take a map of the United States and just put that distance on it and see how many states you're gonna cover. Because that's how big Montana is. All right. Rogers is a county seat of what county? And why is it famous? Ever hear a rodeo expression? On the river Letterbuck, what do we have in every Montana town, seems like? You gotta have a rodeo sometime or another. Well, Powder River Letterbuck is one. All right, the county seat of Weedle County. You go. Yep. Okay. All right, Rogers Roots, anybody know that one? You been down to southwestern Montana? No, what is it? Who's been there? I've been down to Alder. Okay. Why is St. Marie famous and in the news?
Air Force Base.
Air Force base, like last.
Glasgow Air Force Base.
And
Have you all been up and taken a look at that?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. It's gonna be about 25 minutes outside of Glasgow going north. And when you drive through, there's even a group of people one time that wanted to buy all of it and move up and isolate themselves from the rest of the world. That didn't fall, that fell through. But you can still see a couple of the hangars, you can still see the runways and realize that that was the United States Air Force Base there at one time. I'm going to share that. All right. All right, what is the town made famous because of its pig races?
right out of Red Line. It's right out of Red Line, but I can't do it.
Well, at least you've been out of town.
I was just gonna say, Robert.
You've got to go down to Bear Creek.
Yeah,
Okay?
very.
They actually, you go in there and you get yourself a cold one. Maybe after you see a couple of these pig races, you might think there's something in the cold one. But you can have dinner there and you could bet on the pig races. And people come from all over the place when they're down going through Yellowstone. On the way to Yellowstone, it's a few miles outside of Red Lodge. You gotta go there sometime. All right, let's start a couple more. All right, the free enterprise rating in line. Freedom. Feel that one? Hold over, you ever hear that? Now you can go get a tour of that too, and home. A lot of people used to go there now. Here's a way of looking at Montana. And that is, we're a place that has lots of long streets. Look at the sizes of those dots, and that'll show you the power bases and take a look at populations. And you can see where we are. Kalispell and Missoula, and Helena and Billings and Butte,
Great Falls.
and Great Falls, and Bozeman and Billings. And that is really the key in terms of population. And that's done. Now those big dark circles represent populations. So look at the size of those small dots.
Even a hard dot covered up.
Yeah. Now, we had another way of looking at it, and that is we would take a look at where do you find employment? And then you take a look at those dots again, you would see employment really is dominated by the big communities. It really is. Now, here's another way to look at it. And that is, if you just take a look at it in terms of jobs by county. Or you can take a look at it, the employment by regions and how people tend to make their money and what kind of money do they get. And you can see that Bozeman is, which is really growing like crazy. And it might surprise a lot of people. And then it goes down to Billings, Missoula, Kalispell, Helena, Great Falls. Butte. And then you can see the rest of Montana. So here's another way to look at it. And that is when you take a look at building. And you take a look at resources and manufacturing. And again, you see the domination is by the big communities in Montana. So when I say I'd like to talk about Montana towns, there's some things you just have to recognize. And that is, where you can get a job. But you know that when you get a place, it's gonna cost you a lot more than if you come to live here. If you are going to be living, say, in Great Falls or in Billings. Well, if you go here, now if you just take a look at earnings by region. And this is another way, so you can see that I kind of like economics as well. So I've done a lot of studying to go over this. And once again, you can take a look at it, and that is the personal income of Montanans. And you can get it right there. Again, it's dominated. Look at how much is over in those darker colors. All right, so if you take a look at Montana in another way, what do we say about Montana? How many Montanans are there? What do you think?
1.2 million or something.
Yeah. Okay, what else do you think? Look at that map though. You've got mountain Montana, the mountains and the plains, Montana, and then you've got plains, Montana. So you're kind of on the edge, aren't you? Because you got the highwoods, right here close. So you can see that. And here's another way to look at Montana. That is, if we just take a look at it in some of the places that, in the waterways. Or if I gave you that little map and said, draw a map of Montana, how'd you do with your maps? You see why Garvey likes to see it's kind of a, look at that big nose down there. See how they like to say they're the southwest of Montana?
So what's the southeast corner?
It is.
What is the south?
What is it?
Southeast, southeast.
You tell data down there.
From Alzada to Yak.
Yes.
From.
Well, yeah.
There's
Yeah. Yeah.
down
west,
to.
Oneida,
Up to. Now. You gotta put this on your bucket list. While you're out traveling. Don't just go to Yellowstone or Glacier, don't just go to Minneapolis and the Twin Cities. How about going with the idea that you wanna see all of Montana? And a good way to do it, I even have a T-shirt that says, I've seen Montana. And it's got all 5 of those communities. I'm kind of proud of that shirt, I should have worn that. Now, everybody has a few towns, and these are the ones I was telling you that mean a great deal to me. So I married a girl from Glendive. I was born in Havre. My hometown is Carleton. My wife was the head of the college in Dillon. My grandparents were from Whitefish and from Deer Lodge. From Helena, where we lived for a long time, and Missoula is home now. And is that true with a lot of Montanans, that we go from here to there to here to there? It's like you might live here, if you went to college somewhere else, or maybe you came back to your little community, or you did like this young lady who was from Idaho, came to Montana. Then she found a guy in Idaho, came to Montana, now she can't go back to Idaho. I guess she wanted back there. Is that right? We done do it. Okay. All right, now here's another way to look at it. West from the east and all over the country. So here's another one that's quite interesting, and that is, the way some people see it. So you see where we live? Where do we live?
We've been in Davy Crockett.
Yeah, we're in the Davy Crockett territory. Yeah, I visited one of my friends down in Alabama one time, and he said, he made sure that I got that poster when I was down there. Cause he said, we went out to eat at this place, he said, waitress, my friend, he lives up in Davy Crockett country. And I said, okay, Fritz, where do you live? He said, I live down here in Alabama. So that's another way to look at the old world out there. Here's another one. What do you think of this one?
Interesting, huh?
What do you think of this one?
Oh, my goodness, look at that.
What is this one? That's the New Yorkers idea.
Oh, okay.
Stops at the river.
You can see that
Yep,
it's the mountains and the rivers, and we just live way out there
in
somewhere.
the ocean.
No, yeah, yeah. All right, here's another way to take a look at it too. Okay, here's the Bostonians. You all been to Boston? You know where, you've been out on the Cape? See how the
Yeah,
Bostonians,
how
how
big
they
it is.
envision the world? So we are, again, we're way in the outback, out there, who knows? I had one of my friends, I went, did my undergraduate at the University of Notre Dame. And, my roommate was from, Boston. And one summer he came out to Montana to work on my granddad's cattle ranch in Montana. And, we went up the mountains to, take some hay up to the cattle, and we had moved up into the high country. Because all the grass hadn't come in quite yet. And, so I said, okay, here's how we open a gate. And so I was driving the Jeep and had the wagon in the back that had all the hay bales. So at any rate, I said, now watch this. So I get out, I'm driving, he's sitting right next to me. I get out and I open the gate. How do you think I'd open the gate? I use my shoulder and I thought because of that round barb around, but that's the one piece of wire that isn't barbed wire. And then I open the gate, I drive through, and then I close the gate. I said, okay, now, Mr. Driscoll, why don't you go and open and close the gate? So he gets out and he goes over and he is trying to just open the gate so they can get out over the other side and then come back through. So what do you think he did? He couldn't do it, so he stuck his inside, his bottom, his front, and he got caught between the barbed wires. And that was one of the best pictures I ever took. And I shared it with everybody. So, you know, out here, we know about this guy, right? We got a few of these. Okay,
Jackalopes.
all right, there's a good old Montana jackalope. And what else do we have out here? Do any of you like to fish?
Sure.
How about,
Number one.
you all caught one of these? Don't you guys ever fish?
What is it?
What kind of a fish is that? That's a Montana fur fish.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
When I was, he's got white fur.
My
That's
goodness.
disgusting.
All right, so let's look at Montana another way. Yeah, let's just look at Montana map. Now, let's take a look at Montana. Do we have a lot of towns in Montana? Well, if you do it this way, we got a lot of them, don't we? But we know there's a lot of miles between here and wherever. You know, I came down from Fort Benton, I went from Missoula up to, Lincoln, on up over the pass, came down, gorgeous trip coming today. to Great Falls. Then I started heading up the road. I almost felt like going on to Haver since that was my hometown. I made the turn to come down to Fort Benton, then I crossed the river to Binding Moe, and then I was working my way down. And I thought, a lot of people coming from other places might say, I only passed one car or two cars between Fort Benton and here. But if you look at it this way, we have a lot of towns in Montana, don't we? Okay, here's another way we can look at things. And is, if you just take a look at some of the key communities in our state, I've just run a few circles around a few to give you examples. And that is when you drive around, what you ought to do is take a look at how communities are configured. So if you came over to Missoula to see me, for example, Missoula is straight, squared, squared, except for one long street. And the reason that is because in the early days, one rancher was at one end, one rancher was at the other end, and the town was built around the path between the two. So there's another way to look at the community, and that is just drive around and take a look at streets. Okay, now here's another one that's kind of interesting, and that is the Washington Post called Glasgow the middle of nowhere. You remember when that was the case? Anybody ever been there? Well, the Glasgow, because they lost that Air Force base, and because Glasgow was up on the highline on Highway 2. Okay, so a lot of people just go hell bent for leather just to get across the state as quick as they could. Do you know that there was a bill in the legislature a few sessions ago? It was called 4 for 2. Anybody remember that?
Yeah.
The idea was, we ought to have an interstate that goes across the northern tier of Montana. It never got off first base, even in the Montana legislature. But we could never have afforded it without federal dollars like crazy. But the thing is, what Glasgow did, because it was called the town from nowhere, what it did is that they put out a T-shirt that they called I Love Glasgow, Montana. And if you go to Glasgow today, you'll see a thriving little community who has dolled up its town, dolled up its railway, depot, the business places downtown. They've cleaned up all of their streets. They have done a whale of a job with fixing up Glasgow. And they've done something that's very special. The mascot name for Glasgow, the high school, the Scotties. And you know what happens in Glasgow? The cheerleaders wear, anybody ever see their outfits?
They wore kilts and
Kilts.
gloves when they cheerleaded
That's
in Montana.
That's
White
exactly what they do.
kilts
And do you know
white
how
gloves.
many people go to those games? The whole damn town goes to the games in Glasgow. We live in the middle of nowhere, we're proud of it. This is our town. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so endearing to me. This is one of my absolute favorite places. Now, this is what we see so often as we travel. I always say this, when you're driving around, drive around those grain elevators as best you can. See how the rail cars used to come in to load up. We're in the modern day and age where they have to come in with those big trucks, for example. It was a different time then than it is now. But drive around town and take a look at all these buildings, and you'll see how many of them have magnificent edifices outside. At one time it had been the bank. At one time it had been the school. Maybe it had been the depot. What is it now? Sometimes you get a good indication of a town by just taking a look at the buildings that are there and take a look at the names that are up on the top. You get kind of a good indication. So you can see a lot of places that really have made kind of a bit of a difference. So there's a little town today, that's Glasgow again. There's the school on the ground above. This is one of the best ways in the world to take a look at the town. Take a look at churches. Very often the church was the first thing along with the depot or the roundhouse, depending on size of your community, that was built. Very often those churches can make a telling difference. So where I live over in Missoula, if I'm going north, or I know somebody is going north to Flathead Lake, I always tell them to go through St. Ignatius and go see this magnificent art in this Catholic church that was built there with the idea of providing Catholicism to the Indian people that live there. But the guy that did this work was the cook for the Jesuit priests that were there. And it is some of the most magnificent pieces of art you will see anywhere in the world. Art historians, noted artists have gone to St. Ignatius, Montana, because they wanted to see this man's art. He was just a talented guy. So, you know, you just can keep going along. I always tell people this, you know, support your local theater, for example. Well, you don't need to worry about it here, you don't have one of those things. But in my little hometown of Harleton, you know who runs the theater? The high school kids.
Teenagers, I saw a documentary on.
They make the popcorn, sell the tickets, clean it, and they get credit for doing it. Because they have to keep the books and they have to take turns with doing it. But it means that they have a town theater. Cool. And it's called the Harlow. Okay, so there's good old middle of nowhere. And there was Glasgow Air Force Base. That's what it looked like from the air. A lot of those buildings from when I was lucky enough to fly with somebody, you got that picture. But so much of it is a shambles, I almost hate to even see it. Yeah. Okay, welcome to St. Marie.
And that's what it used to look like, or now?
Now, look at it now.
There are people who live there though.
Yeah,
There's
very few, but there are a few.
No, it's like people with yards that they mow.
They actually live there.
Yes, with
Yeah.
them, it's just like a yard, or just like a house in any town,
And they're cool.
and there'll be empty houses on.
Yeah.
both yards.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it is kind of cool.
it's really odd.
There's all kinds of stories about theirs.
All right, here it is. Here's a view of it. All right, here's another one. And then here's a little old is made. And there's tiny, Fort Tiny. There's Missoula Slat Streets. Now, I'm gonna give you a couple of examples. Take a look at this one. This is where the pulp mill used to be in East Missoula, in Milltown. What they have put there now is a big amphitheater. Somebody might be going to a show tonight, even in Fort Benton. It's called the Kill House. It seats sitting on the grass, or sitting in a box, sitting in seats, or standing. It will seat 12,000 people. In Missoula this last week, 3 concerts. 3 concerts. Now, that's the way Missoula is trying to tell a story. Every town has to find a way to tell their story. And they do that, it can make a world of difference. So. All right, now, if you take a look at census, again, take a look at where the dominant population bases are in Montana. Now, if we take a look at rural America, look at this one. What do we say about the frontier counties of America? And you see what they are? If you think of the Dakotas coming west, with the exception of Denver, until you jump all the way over to Seattle, or down to LA, San Francisco, or West Texas, you can see that it is rural America. Completely different than so much of the rest of the country. Now, if we take a look at Montana's population, we are 1.1 million. We're number 44. So, if you look at it that way, and you take a look at Montana cities and towns by just locating them, like on that map I gave you, that I'm sure you all did a beautiful job of drawing your outline map of Montana. You probably don't want to show it there, right? I don't mind. Yeah. You did a pretty good one. Okay, now, can you locate all the Montana towns on there? Can you do a lot of them?
The big ones,
Can you do some of the smaller ones?
sure,
Right.
here.
Here's a good way to do it. What if you would take a look at Montana towns? And just work your way across and see if you can just do county seats. Or here, can you do counties? Just locate, you know, all the counties right around you? Good, if you do. Okay, now let's take a look at the bigger towns in Montana. Here's another way to take a look at it again. And that is, you think of Montana being shaped like a cowboy boot. So you can see, stretching maybe all the way up a little bit beyond Lewistown, that's a little misleading, coming up to your country, down to Bozeman, all the way over, including Great Falls and Missoula and Hamilton, Butte and Helen and everything. So that's one way. Or here's another one. And that is if you take a look at our Indian reservations. Well, here's another side of Montana that is gives you kind of a clue of Montana's story. Now, we have tried to make up for a lot of the differences that we've had from over the years. And you know that things have not always been as peaceful as we would like to see on reservations, for example. You know what we have in Montana now? Every kid that goes through school in Montana, you know what they get? They will have a class on Indian education. It's called Indian Education for All. And the intent is to say that Montana has a variety of people coming from a variety of backgrounds. And we should celebrate and honor. And I think that is one of the greatest monuments that we have to Montana. All right, so if we take a good look again at some of those Montana. Okay, why are you going to Montana? Well, there's two things I gotta go see. I gotta go to Jellystone, and I gotta go up to Glacier. Yep. Now, you don't wanna go to Glacier very often. You have to get in line early in the morning if you didn't already buy a ticket 2 months out. And then you wanna stay at Mini Glacier, you can't stay there, you wanna stay here. We've been booked for 6 weeks. And
Year, I don't think, you think do it a year in advance.
yes, it's really wild. And, you know, when you go to Yellowstone, the prices to be through the roof for a lot of folks. But we know that a lot of people come to Montana because of the acres. They see those as big reasons to come. And I always think that, you know, you can get people that consider being in Whitefish or Kalispell or down in Red Lodge or in Columbus or Edgar, or go watch the pig races at Bear Creek. You know, those are ways in which you can kind of feed off of the big acres that are out. So, you know, when you think of the beauty of these fabulous places we like to call home. So here's Westby, there's your northeast corner. And good old Westby. Now, here's an interesting thing about Westby. When you drive into Westby from Montana, you will see a sign that says entering Westby. But the sign says something else. It says entering Westby, Montana. You drive halfway through the town, you'll see a sign that says leaving Montana. Welcome to North Dakota. If you turn around and come in the other way and do the opposite. Interestingly enough, the school building is in the state of Montana. the playground for the kids is in North Dakota. Every year, Westby and Grenora join together to play ball. One year, the boys will go over to Grenora from Montana and play for North Dakota. And that year, the girls were from North Dakota come to Montana. Next year, you switch. So wouldn't this be kind of a big deal? You get through high school and somebody says to you, when you go off to Stanford, or you go to New York University, or maybe you go to the University of Florida or some other place, or even some little place like University of Texas. So, you a ball player? Yep. Any good? Yep. How good? See my t-shirt? I played on state champions for North Dakota and for Montana. I think that's one of the coolest things. Okay, there you are, leaving Montana. Oh my goodness, where else we gotta go? Now let's go down to the southeast corner. Then everybody down there, down toward Broadus and heading down toward Devil's Tower in Wyoming. And you know, everybody has to go and gotta go down to, what's that little town? That little place down in South Dakota?
Spearfish.
Spearfish, yeah. Feel they can't speak.
Sturgis.
Yeah, Sturgis, yeah. Have you been there for the Sturgis?
No.
Probably went by motorcycle?
Yeah, I did, I've been.
You been there?
No.
Yeah. Did you ride a
Yeah.
motorcycle?
I've been to Sturgis, but not on a motorcycle.
But you know, that's what Deadwood and that little town of Sturgis on the absolute map. A lot of people that don't know where Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota pretty much meet each other. Interestingly enough, still a lot of people have heard of Sturgis. Because it is something that's been kind of mentioned. And if you get down there, you'll see those towns really look kind of cool because they have profited well by having that kind of a thing that happened to them. So now let's just take a look at some more of Montana.
Where's that? Where was that?
Now some more dirt, that down in the corner. All right, now here's Medina in the southwest corner. You know where Medina is? Where?
Southeast,
Right
southwest.
on.
Southwest, right on the
Right on the
border.
border.
You're going Dillon, you're going up over the top of the pass. The last place in Montana, what's it called? Montana, Montana, Idaho.
Oh, that's right.
There you go. Yeah. You people are gonna do a good job when you get up to the school. All right, now, let's go down here and let's go down to take a look at beautiful Darby. Look at this. That's the southwest west corner of Montana. Now, look at this one. This is kind of interesting. And you know what they have done down there? They have a wonderful festival every year down there. And people come from the Missoula country, for example, or coming up from Idaho that love going down there, the concert stuff that's down in that area of the world. And there's a lot of people that have come up with summer homes down in that area. So here's kind of a good example of some of the beautiful country that's down close to the border area. Now let's go up to Yak to the northwest corner. Now, let me tell you, if you're gonna go to Yak, your work is cut out. It ain't easy getting to Yak. I'll tell you. Okay. Now. Here it is. And a lot of people have to go there. See the name of it?
Dirty Shane.
Dirty Shane Saloon. You see what's out in front? A couple of motorcycles. A lot of people who travel across America. They've all heard about, well, you gotta go out of your way, you gotta go to Yak. Anytime I've ever been up there, there's always motorcycles there. Always. Okay, now here's more population facts about Montana. The communities that are 100,000 plus. And the communities that are way under that. If you take a look at those, you can see the population, a third are 7 communities. Now, if you take a look at the next 14, that is 92,000 plus. Now, if you keep working your way down, and how many people live here in this town? 250, 250? Okay, so that means you are in the group that are under 1,000. Under 500. What's a town? Larger than a village, smaller than a city. But here's some of the facts of small towns. And that is, they very often are aging populations. They very often have little political pull, lack of diversity, and older folks living there. Now, there is always the problem with the areas having to do with consolidation of the ag industry, the loss of the railroad, the mining, or timber. Sometimes it's location, the distance from anywhere. So just going from, say, Lewistown to Great Falls, 100 miles, to Billings, 120, to Bozeman, 160, and it's forever to get to Missoula. And what do we sometimes say about Lewistown? The center of Montana? It's not the center of Montana, though, is it?
No.
You know where it is? It's a Hutterite colony, 12 miles west of Lewistown.
Oh.
Pretty close. All right, now, take a look at job growth since 2000. And you'll see the job growth of the heavier colors. And look at those that have the least job growth, and you can see the loss of jobs. Now, if you take a look at it in terms of schools, now think what we often have to do. For example, what you folks have to do in order to just make a go of it. And that is, I put on the map today, thanks to Tammy Jo, you have consolidated Geraldine and you guys, what do you call it?
Bearcats.
Huh? Are you the Bearcats?
Oh, you're talking about the
Oh,
rival.
The rivals?
The rivalries, yeah,
Oh,
okay.
that
Now,
was
if
previously.
you take a look at some of these, and you take a look at distances from where you are right here, 150 to Billings, 140 to Bozeman, to Missoula, 180, I drove it today. To Great Falls, if you're gonna go shopping, you got 67, to Lewistown to 54. You probably more often go to Great Falls than you go to Lewistown, I'll just bet. But one of the things I wanna point out to you, and that is, and I don't see that you really have a grocery store here, but the closer you, you might, where you do have. Okay, all right, a small one, but be sure that you support that grocery store, because if you don't, what is it gonna mean? Its existence,
We were without for 3 or 4 years.
And you were
exactly
without.
what it means.
and you know exactly what it means. Okay, now if you take a look at schools again, and you can take a look as you drive around, I think one of the most interesting things is take a look at abandoned schools. And boy, there are a lot of them in Montana. You can see them over and over and over.
Do you have a picture of the Montague one? Montague one is so cool. And it's gonna be falling down pretty soon.
You better show it to me too.
My house is half of a school.
Hmm.
My house is half of a school.
Your house is,
Yeah, it's got, this chunk is from a school, this chunk is from a church.
What schools?
I don't know. Came out of the country somewhere.
Some of the very common things for
Yeah.
back then, a lot of these schools, when they're abandoned, they were moved in.
My garage.
As part of living.
that's right, we already just had a lot of schools that were abandoned were moved in to
Right.
communities because they had abandoned someplace, but they could make a difference in terms of a family somewhere else.
well, that's what they did.
181 little school buses in Chilton County,
Yeah.
My dad used to tell a story that,
181.
I can remember my dad saying the story one time, he said, yeah, I went to, small school in Montana, he said, I was, well, I just want you to know this. That I finished number 2 in my class. Really? And he'd turn around and say, that girl was so damn smart. Okay. Now, if you just take a look at another place, here's a town that's kind of reinvented itself, Superior. It's on the main drag on the way out, say if you're going from Billings to Bozeman to through Butte on to Missoula and on to Coeur d'Alene and Spokane and on out to the coast. What Superior did is that they did an absolute work on their town to do something really special. It's right along the river, and they went along and they cleaned up, got rid of all the broken down old buildings, picked up their school like nobody's business, and they even refurbished the hospital to the point that they now have a practicing hospital in Superior, Montana, which for a time was actually closed down. So little Superior just put itself kind of on the map, and their little downtown is really, really kind of a special place now. And they have a big folk festival there every year, and it's one of the ways in which they try to tell their little story. So this to me is one of the cool things they do, along with, they do one of those things that's very popular in Montana. And that is when you have the, say, all the sports cars coming in somewhere. And everybody wants to bring their sports car from somewhere or another, and people can go take a look at them all. They have their own little car rallies. That's a very popular thing to do. So this is little old Superior, Montana. And you know what, at the ball games, everybody shows up in Superior. They take great pride. Now, this was the letterhead my folks had when they had the newspapers in Harleton and Raleigh, when we lived there for many years. The Times for Harleton, the Clarion for Raleigh. Now, you notice how the line's drawn and shows Harleton as the center of Montana. And they used to take great pride in that. If you turn the paper over, this is what it looked like. Again, what's the center of the world? Harleton, Montana. That was a way in which they emphasized their love affair. Now, when I go back to my hometown day after tomorrow, this is gonna be one of the things I have to talk about. Kid that I grew up with in my hometown, ended up going to Dartmouth to college, and then ended up writing a book that became very, very popular, a story of a small town. Here's the name of this story. Harlow, of Remembrance. And it is just his story of growing up in a little town in Montana. Now, close your eyes if you don't mind. Because there it is. That was the great story. It's still hard for me. And this is what the brothers look like. I need to show you that. Luckily, they cleaned up a lot of them. But they might
Find out what started the fire.
still,
Yeah, I didn't think so.
there's always been lots of that. Who knows? Hey. Here is downtown Harlem. And I tell people when they're going through a town, drive around, go up and down the main street. Here are the flour mills in Harlem. I mean, it almost looks like it'd be some kind of a statue or something, or a big bank in downtown New York City. Well, here's another one, the main drag. This is where we all used to hang out in the corner in our town. It was called Coach's Corner for Will Grades. And that's where you stand around while people go up and down the main street.
For a lot of those buildings, Town built by the Masons, they would build a lot of the.
Yeah. A lot of them. Now, here's the courthouse in Harlem. And then there's the hospital. So my little town has done a fair job. But like so many others, when I was a kid, I'm kind of proud to be able to tell you this. I played in the high school football team. We lost one high school football game when I was in high school. My freshman year, we got beat by Lewistown St. Leo's, 6-2. Football. We never lost another game, sophomore, junior, senior year, 11-man football. For Harleton to play football today, it's 6-man, and you join with Rygate and Judah Cap. And that has happened over and over and over in Montana. And your little area is very typical of that very thing.
Cheerleading state champions of 11 year, 1974.
You weren't even alive, were you?
Unfortunately, was it 8?
Yeah.
Okay, never
I'll
mind.
say, were you one of them?
No.
You wanted to be. You were the ninth.
He was at his school before me too,
That was after me.
Oh, it was after you.
Yeah.
and I was already on the school.
All right, here's another way we can kind of take a look at things. Here's the old railroad. Oh, I hate to show you this one. But there we are. You see the spur line? Can you all see it? Look at all those names.
But they're
So
all
where
on
do
our
names
map.
come from? And why do you think they do it? Name for an engineer, name for a spouse, name for the country they came from, name for the place they came from, they in back of the East Coast. Study of place names is really something very, very special. That's one of the coolest things going. And knowing place names. Now, this is one way in my hometown, which has no way for years, but they have one of the electric line right up there in the top of the main street of town. And this is what it looked like in the days when it was the Milwaukee Railroad. So when you travel around Montana, along the, what had been the Milwaukee tracks, you'll see a lot of those places, which were the power stations. Power station, who ever heard of an electric in Montana? Well, some say maybe we gotta have electrics coming back. And maybe that's gonna be the case over and over and over. Now, take a look at depots. Depots are one of the best ways to tell stories. So for example, that's the depot in my hometown. 2 blocks from my house, I could get on the train at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, one afternoon. Go to Chicago and get off the train at 1 o'clock Chicago time. Have to take a cab 1.5 miles in Chicago to take a train called the South Shore Limited. And I would be on the campus of my university Notre Dame. And how many kids traveled back and forth to school because they took the trains? Over and over, that was the case.
My grandmother delivered all 3 of her kids. Yeah, by getting on the train, these people going to Great Falls to give birth. Can you imagine?
Can you imagine?
The central line was required, built a town every 6 miles between Lewistown and Great Falls. Were they required to do that in exchange for the land grant, or did they do that?
That is an argument.
It's for water, I think.
Yeah, I think water more than anything, but some say that that is still an argument. That the Rockefellers, for example, or some others, that they thought by naming all these places, it was gonna get in more investment dollars into people coming out with the idea that this is something to really buy into.
But they,
But water is very key.
they believed that Geraldine was gonna be the central hub between Lewistown and Great Falls. Our depot is a Class A California type depot because they figured there would be 5,000 people living here. So they built that fancy ass depot. And the town never really got over like 350 people. You know, but that's what they had planned.
And what do they call, depots in this town?
That this town is a California style Class A.
I know, but I thought you said it was a fancy house.
It is. It's got maybe.
I just didn't know your English. Listen to this now.
I'm from Big Sandy.
Big Sandy,
Yeah.
what's your mascot name?
Pioneers.
Were you a pioneer
Yeah, well,
or were you there before the pioneers? You were a pioneer.
anyway, the railroad really promoted people coming out here and a lot of false advertising and all this and that. They showed pictures, when my dad came out and homesteaded in the Big Sandy country, they showed pictures of wheat shoulder high, and you didn't have to tear up the trees, you didn't have to do anything, just go out there and plant it.
And then get the hell out of the way.
And they promoted the Big Sandy was gonna be a 30,000 population community in 10 years.
Big Sandy, Montana.
And the only people that stayed in Big Sandy, Montana were the people who could not afford to get back home.
But Big Sandy's on the map right now, isn't it?
Kind of.
Somebody's running for office. Yeah,
Well,
okay, now let's go on. Let's go on. Let's take a look at another way to see things. And that is, let's go take a look at the High Line. And one of the, think of names again. I want you to think of, Hill County. Anybody know that one?
Yeah.
Jim Hill. Have you ever seen the statue there in Havre? That's one of the things that brings a lot of people into Havre, is they just want to see where this big rail builder and this statue that is there. So it's a drawing card for a lot of people coming in just to take a look at that little town, which is a neat town. I like that town a lot. All right, now let's take a look at the Northern Pacific. All right, take a look at it. Now, the Northern Pacific went all over the place. And look at it when it was pockmarked here and there and everywhere. Now, take a look at things today. Have any of you heard about any kind of a movement afoot of building a rail system again? That is going east, west, not north, south, east, west.
Right.
So one of the things that's being talked about is what if you would have a rail service that ran from Billings to Missoula, going down through Bozeman, Butte, and the people would take the train, and we would do like the way I went to college. We would ride the train. Now, the only problem is, and I never hear anybody talk about this, what happens if you're going from Missoula to Billings, and you took the train? Now you get off the train, how are you supposed to get around Billings? Or get down to Hardin, or anywhere else? So anyway, but it's still something that even now is being talked about. Yeah. Now, if you take a look at another way of taking a look at trains and passengers and services and everything else, look at that picture on the left. Now take a look at it with the coal trains and with Amtrak, for example. And you've all seen those coal trains. But you know what happened when it came to coal? Now think of a town like a little village up in northeastern Montana called what? Sydney? Were we looking for coal? What were we looking for? Well, that was gonna be a big deal. So where was the place we might be looking for coal? Anybody think of one? Cold Strip, that's where the name came from. Anybody been to Cold Strip in the last couple of years?
Last couple of years, I was there 2 or 3 times to auction sales.
And you go there, were you with Jocelyn?
Pardon me?
You work for Jocelyn?
No.
Auction sale.
Oh, auction, I thought you were talking about Jocelyn, I was thinking,
No, no, no,
remember,
auction.
they used to sell that stuff to,
Yeah.
you know, at schools and everything. Well, interestingly enough, when you think of some of these towns and why they came around or whatnot. Now, if you go down to a place like Colstrip, for example, and you take a look at that little town, that is a beautifully laid out town. But you know, the world is changing. And we're going to get our energy from a lot of other kinds of sources. How many homes are you aware of, for example, that now have on some kind of a device up on top of their roofs of their houses? And how about down the road, how are we gonna get fuel? Are we gonna see more and more instances of people with electric cars? Now, you look at Montana and you go, are you kidding me? There's not gonna be an electric car that's gonna be running from Fort Benton down here to Lewistown. But is it gonna happen in a lot of other places? And who knows down the road? So, you know, you take a look at some of these places. Now, here's a town that's done a great job of telling railway history. This is Livingston. And if you haven't been down to Livingston and gone to that railway museum, boy, now that is a town that has really done a good job. They have cleaned up that town like you cannot believe. And it has become a destination. A lot of people bypass Bozeman because they're gonna stay overnight, for example, in Livingston. Or the same way going from Billings, or they're going to a Bobcat football game, for example, they'll stay overnight in Livingston. So, you know, this is really kind of a little community that's done a great job. So, here we go. So, that's me there. Mhm. Well, hi there, right? Hal's life in the past life. So that's me. I live in the past lane. Are you two going up to sing tonight?
Yes, we are.
You got that's fine.
Thank you very much.
Hey,
Thank
do this, we'll end right over. We can shoot the breeze in, those are except for these songbirds who are in there tonight. The tickets were 50 cents each, 2 for a dime. Want to see a couple more?
Yeah, I'm gonna go use Sammy's.
Thank you.
All right, you want to see a couple more? Okay, so. What should we visit? You know, for years and years, everybody wanted to go down and visit this place called Custer's Last Stand. Do we call it that anymore?
No.
No, a little Bighorn battlefield. For years and years, and this was run by the US government. It was run by the government, and a lot of people finally said, well, listen, that yo-yo got beat, why in the heck are we giving him credit? He shouldn't have any credit anyway. He graduated last in his class at West Point, so just in case you needed to know
I
that.
don't imagine cheated all the way through to get there.
Were you there?
Well,
Oh, you weren't there then.
But I did a lot of, when I was in the military, I got a lot of military history about things not to do. And
You didn't cheat?
Right, examples.
You didn't cheat that,
Yeah,
so he was a good guy?
yeah.
Okay. You know why this battle got so much ballyhoo though? Not just because this was the first big defeat. That poster right there was in every bar and saloon in America at one time, showing the battle, and it was absolutely all wrong. And everybody having a cold one would be sitting there going, yep, I can see exactly how that happened. There are the Indians coming up over the rise over there, and it was completely wrong. But what it did was it was a way of selling a place. And it worked.
beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how, that's why people got interested in it in the first place. It wasn't just because of good old Mr. Gus. I can just keep on going. This is down at the battlefield. Now, here's another story that is one of the great Montana stories that also ties in with our neighboring states. And this is the famous one of Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce.
Trail of Tears. The Trail of Tears.
The Trail of Tears. Gee, Christmas, you keep this up, you're gonna get.
She's a school teacher.
Well, I
She's
taught,
what?
She's a school teacher.
I taught kindergarten.
I don't care, she's still a school teacher.
One of them, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah. Well, they're everywhere.
She makes us practice all the time.
That's that's good. Okay. Now, how about Montana ghost towns? And Montana ghost towns, and we've got plenty of them. And boy, here's one of the coolest places to go.
Tudor is a
The
ghost
famous
town?
Two Dot. All the Two Dot has there now are two things.
That
A
bar.
bar.
It has a bar and it has a post office.
Okay.
Until 3 years ago, it also had an elementary school. And if you go on Highway 12 and you're driving from my hometown toward White Sulphur Springs, I'm way too young to ever go to the Two Dot Bar. But here's what the sign says out on the highway. Two Dot Bar. Easy to find, hard to leave. I mention that because sometimes having some neat little title like that can really sell a community too. Everybody sometime or another says they have to go to the Two Dot Bar. You know, it's just one of those things. You need to go and see what it looks like.
That's what we use Ponyo for. You know, Ponyo,
Yeah,
we used to in high school.
We went to.
We were-
We would never go back.
Where Ben and Geraldine didn't necessarily get along. So just to be awful, we'd tell the Fort Benton kid, because the movie theater was over there. That we didn't have to go to their movie theater, we had one in Ponyo. That we went to all the time. And they didn't know what the hell we were talking about. So,
here's one of those famous communities. Here's one of the famous ones, a lot of you have been here, you've been to Bennett. How about Jordan and Dustin?
Yeah.
You been there? You get the t-shirt?
Did not.
You need to go back. I didn't know if they had them. Now, some of them are kind of interesting. Here is the parents smelter, this is down in southwestern Montana. West of Dillon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here, beautiful Butte. Butte has done a pretty darn good job at selling themselves. They've got a lot of information. Interesting to me how people will pay dollars to go across this flankage bridge, go out and stand there in a place that's kind of walled in, and you look down on a great big hole, and you'll pay a couple of bucks to go take a look at it. Because they wanted to see the famous pit and view. So sometimes, you can sell yourself in a lot of different ways. So, here's good old view. A lot of people, it is a destination. They need to go to view. Now. You should just think about traveling. And here's. Some people say was going to be the energy future of America. There's Williston, and we've always talked to Williston, like the Williston Basin. I hear a lot about that kind of thing, like usually. And this was the idea that traffic, we were gonna carry energy coming down from southern, a little bit of southern Canada, but mostly in the US, coming down through the Sydney country, heading down toward areas in Nebraska. Caused a lot of commotion out there. So here's the golden sunlight mine, ever hear of that one? You can still see, if you look up on the hill, near Whitehall, between 3/4 and View, you look at it and see to the golden sunlight line. A lot of vacant buildings still, even in Whitehall today. Although things have changed, a lot of people can't afford to even live in View. Or they drive all the way over from Whitehall 50 miles to Bozeman to work. So sometimes these little places, Palladium Mine at 9. There's the great coal strip. Sometimes it's hard for me to look at these. Now, you seen the wind farms? One of the biggest ones, of course, famous one's the one by Judith Gap. You know, from any corner going south, they get wind there constantly. And some say that that'll be the future of energy. Then, the idea of solar energy, we just change the town. Well, here's a town, White Sulphur Springs. And here's an ongoing controversy. Now, this one, they have this beautiful old castle. The guy who only way to convince a gal come from Scotland to be at the build her a castle. And it's got a great museum there and a neat main street. And it has a good railway car there, tells a story of the year that the Varnum that Daily Brothers Circus decided they could winter in Montana. That was a good joke. That didn't happen. You're not far out of White Sulphur Springs. You've got one of these. No, what's this called? Tiki bird. Yeah. And why was White Sulphur Springs a big deal for a long time? For Indian people traveling through, it was because of this. A natural hot water pool. Now get this. The motel that is right there, where that pool is, every night they drain it at 11 o'clock, 100%. And it has brand new water in it at 7 o'clock in the morning. And guess what? It has made that community a destination, just to go, to stay in a motel, to go to a hot water spring. Now,
You stayed there 2 years ago. It's a fabulous place.
you stayed there?
Yeah.
Were you the one that the police were looking for?
Yeah, I But White Sulphur Springs, they've got a brewery. They have got. Say, why can't you keep this a secret?
How did you get in there?
You just drive through.
The brewery?
Fake ID.
They're building a new brewery across the street because they've done so well in that spot.
You might be going back.
Oh, we go that way.
Okay,
That's the Two Basket Brewery.
okay, there you go. What do we,
They've
you
got.
know, you people know drinking.
Well,
I thought some of them.
White Sulphur, they have a brand new library that's absolutely gorgeous.
Yes, they do, and a great looking school, and the
That's new.
football field looks good,
Yeah.
and they've got something else that's a big time,
Red ants.
and there it is.
Yeah.
Red Ants Pants,
Yeah.
and that has been one of the biggest shows. You will see people come from everywhere. Now, I'm not just saying that you're coming from Livingston,
No.
and they're coming from Townsend, and you're coming from Great Falls. They're coming from all over the country, because you know that these great big shows really attract. And this got started because of a gal that settled in White Sulphur Springs with a woman's clothing store.
Sarah Calhoun.
Did you buy an outfit too?
No.
You gotta go back.
I go all the time.
Well, there you go.
Women's workwear.
Yeah, women's work.
I work for the newspaper.
You work for which newspaper?
River Press. I've taken a bunch of pictures tonight. You might be in the River Press next week.
The River Press.
The River Press. I got off an hour early just to come over here.
And you stayed awake pretty well. So you took good notes.
It's all up here.
You better be sure that I'm going to get a copy of that. You know, growing up in a newspaper family, I'm one of these crazy people living in Missoula. I still have to look at the Great Falls Tribune hard copy, the Missoulian. I look at the Billings Gazette, online. I know why. Newspaper business, it's time to move on.
Our subscription rate has only thought it going up. We sent out 1,257 papers last week.
Cool. But you guys do something that a lot of people don't. Do. You cover a lot of news of a lot of places. There's a guy speaking down in this little town down the road from Fort Benton. And that's gonna be a lead story next week. Front page. It's a big headline. Okay, now, this is another one of those controversies. Do it before the pay.
If you got a subscription, renew it before the first. Our rates are going up.
She's gotta take care of business.
Taking care, that'd be a good song.
I sell the advertising.
All right, you probably have heard of the Black Butte mining. You know, what do we have down in that country? You have to get in line now. Get a reservation in early to do the famous float trip, Smith River.
Yeah.
And what a trip that is. Well, a lot of people say this is one of those controversies. But that cats get fatter. And this little town loses something that was near and dear to them. They lose that river. And a lot of people who live in Montana say that river doesn't just belong to the folks living there.
Yeah.
It belongs to all of us. It's our river. Belongs to us.
It's too bad.
So. Okay, so there it is. That's a hot potato still. The Black Duke Copper Company. So we can go and see a lot of places. Well, then the Fort Shaw, you all know the story.
Yeah.
They still don't do a very good job of telling that story. As well as they should.
But the first.
It's better than it used to
Getting a
be.
little better though.
It's a little better. What's a little town that's close by? What's another one?
Sims.
Sims. What's the big deal about Sims? If we were in a
Oh, it's got a
helicopter,
radiant,
if we were in a helicopter above Sims.
it's
Just
a
like-
radiant street, the streets go in a radiant
That's right.
pattern.
Okay.
It goes in a radiant
I
pattern.
did not know that.
And they don't tell many people that. They need to. That's
They
a.
laid it out, was it a railroad that laid it out or?
No, it was the locals, just a couple of people, you know, when they were coming in, everything was kind of building up there, farming particularly. That a couple of people had just this great idea, who had come from big city life and said, well, there's no reason in the world why we can't have things kind of moving out and radiating from local government. Kind of a neat idea. So, there's the old Fort Shaw Wolves. What a story that one is. Famous Indian school. Now, why is that famous in sports history?
First women's basketball.
Women's
Women's
basketball
basketball.
And
Native
what did it
American.
do? It won the game, considered to be the first great women's sports game nationwide. And it was won by these Indian girls, because of the guy that was the headmaster of the school taught the girls that, so that they would know something more than how to change the children's unders and how to cook. He wanted them to get them to play ball. A guy from here is working really hard on that. They grew up here. Ken Robinson. I know, he's from Scribbing Bench.
And where did they play it? In Shore County? Above the drugstore.
Right,
They were
In that-
there this summer.
in the,
Yeah. Shoot, many shoot.
Shoot.
Cause didn't they used to practice there?
I don't think they practiced there. I think they just played out.
well, it was a big, I mean, it's a big.
It's
real, like
way
a-
above their drugstore.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, here's one, never been here. Port of Cinnamon, what's the big deal with Port of Cinnamon?
State agricultural.
Something else. besides state agricultural? Anybody know?
Probably farthest north, fourth farthest
that-
north.
And something else. That was the officer quarters.
Is that the one that the pink church belongs to? On Highway 2, the pink church?
No, no. See this? That was his first military command.
Okay.
Oh, the famous Blackjack Pershing.
Oh.
And why did he get that name?
Gambler?
It was an all-black unit
Oh,
that he commanded.
Oh,
You couldn't even get,
No.
you couldn't even get, white soldiers
Yeah.
that would volunteer to come up into that country. So here's a guy who becomes one of the most famous of all the military heroes that we've ever had in history. And they have never done as good a job there. I wish they, oh man.
And of course, what killed Fort Assiniboine is when the US and Canada finally decided their border, why there weren't supposed to be any military installations that close to the border, so they shut Fort Assiniboine down. And then Montana made an experiment station out of it.
And you were there when they shut it down? Oh, you weren't there.
I wasn't.
You weren't there.
I'm not quite that old. I'm a little old.
All right, now, here's another one that's kind of cool. Have you all, that last picture?
Of how?
The streets.
The streets is interesting.
Our old post office is in the Haver Underground.
Boxes are.
Now, this is another one that is really something else. Haver beneath the streets.
Oh, yeah.
Our old.
That
post
is-
office.
That is a fascinating place to go to.
I have to admit, when our ladies group went through, I'm a little naive, I was shocked at the opium den. I don't know why, but I was.
And there were some wild ladies that used to hang out there. too.
Probably.
You need to.
The two
get to be
sweet
friends with
girls.
Duke more often. Wanna tell some stories. Okay, now,
Clara?
here's what happens now. Has anybody been in Haver in the last couple of years?
Yeah.
Remember when they had the big mall?
Yeah,
It's
not
gone.
much.
No,
And
well, right
Kmart,
down the way,
that was the nicest Kmart in Montana,
Yeah.
now it's.
and look at things down the road, the big old Walmart, another one of those, the giant corporations that come in and can impact and change a Montana town. So there was a Kmart, Walmart. The cattle kingdom. You know, everybody had to have a cattle brand. My uncle's brand was the Lazy S.J. My grandfather's was the 3-prong frying pan.
Ours is the J Lazy S.
You almost stole that.
Yeah, the valuable one, it's only 2
The
pieces.
first major herd in Montana was at St. Ignatius.
Were you there?
There are Herefords that went around Cape Horn, came up the west side and then were driven across Oregon.
That's right.
One time they had almost 800 Herefords in St. Ignatius.
Wow.
Which is another neat town to go through that whole area, from there all the way up to Polson. And now, you know, the National Bison Range, and now that the reservation folks now have big medicine. You know, the white buffalo white bison was in the Historical Society in Helena. I was on the board of the Historical Society when we felt that would be good relations to move over to the Indian reservation, because they were taking over the National Bison Range.
Yeah, our folks took us down to see big medicine
Couple of them.
See.
when he was at the bison.
Now, here's Terry, Montana. And anybody know why Terry, Montana is a big deal?
My grandfather homesteaded at Terry.
Then you probably have a couple of pictures.
I don't.
You know why I'm saying this?
Why?
Because of her.
Oh,
Yeah, Evelyn Cannon.
Why
Why are you gonna go to a little tiny Montana town? Well, you go there because you gotta go and see this wonderful photography of a woman who came out because her husband promised her that she would be on the Montana horse raising ranch. He lied. He did.
It was awful.
He raised those funny looking horses.
He still was.
Oh, you know,
Oh, cow, he still was awful.
She was around here a lot, took a lot of pictures.
she took,
Yeah,
and that's a place to go visit. It's a wonderful place to go
And
visit.
that's a wonderful book.
Yes, it is.
Do you have it?
Yes,
Which one's that? They have on camera book. It's at the Fort Benton Library.
there's supposed to be one here.
It's really.
well, you gotta get that. Sammy Joe, get the game. No, not, there's a lot of picture of the book.
What is
We'll give you the title.
Evelyn Cameron,
Evelyn Cameron.
Okay. Some great balls.
it's a Montana.
Sammy Joe, do you, where's the Beyond Spokes book that the historical committee donated to you?
This one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
there
one
it
we
is.
wrote. That's
Oh,
the sequel to that.
oh.
Hey, by the way, I wanna compliment you on those. I got here early enough tonight to take a look at those. Those are really nice books.
Well, look at the one behind you that we did, the big thick one. Did you look at it?
Not yet.
Well, that's the.
I might be up
sequel to
all
that.
night.
We put that one out in 2014.
In that spokesperson, Topple verse, the history that never made it in there is probably what's the most interesting.
Yeah, and
I'm sure of that. I'm sure of that. Well, I'll go quick here. I only got about 500 more to go. These are all some of her pictures. And then, of course, we're all familiar with something that is a magnet when you go to Great Falls. You gotta go and take a look because it was captured by one of the greatest artists in all of American history. And he just happened to be a cowboy out of Montana. I like to talk that way when I get around my Notre Dame buddies. I have a lot of them that I went to school with that didn't even know what my name was. They always just called me Montana. When I was there was only 2 kids a year that came from Montana. It was that way for a long period of time, so I was always Montana. Kind of like that name. The old homestead days. How many people came out on the rails and telling these stories about the homesteading. You've got in your book here, you've got some beautiful pictures and comments. And then, of course, here's one I don't even like to show you a picture of this guy. Did you ever hear of this guy? Anybody? Some say he is the father of 16 northeastern counties of Montana. Dan McKay. He was a fellow that was involved with building banks and big structured buildings. And he saw a way of making money. If we create counties, that means you have to have a county seat. That means you build a building. This guy, I hate to even show you because he was a yo-yo plus. He should never even be in a history book. That guy. But he is. Now, of course, did anybody ever have roads like this? You guys have these once in a while? You got a couple of these around? No. No. We never had these before, did we? You ever have windstorm?
Was that the day was he instrumental when they broke up the 7 big counties?
Yep,
So he might have done show them too, you know?
we gotta check your history.
Yeah.
20 miles from water. 40 miles from wood. We're leaving dry Montana and we're leaving here for good.
Yeah.
Anybody ever hear homesteaders that left?
Yeah.
Have you ever talked to anybody that left Montana? Where you from, Montana? Yeah, I had great grandparents who were in Montana. They got the hell out. A lot of times, you know, But. There's nothing like getting lost in thinking.
You should hear about our Geraldine fun days.
This year,
Yeah.
we were,
I'm not, yeah.
we were getting the car for 2 hours waiting for the storm to pass.
Oh, yeah, it was, I've got a video of, it's, from KRTV, our local radio, first TV station, like to watch it.
Are we all?
Oh,
We better have treats. I think it's time. You people held up pretty darn well. Now make sure you have a copy of every one of them. Thanks for coming, you guys.
Thank you.
Glad you came.
Just kind of really curveball.